My sister-in-law dropped the ultimate family nuke at a July 4th barbecue in 2017, claimed I got her pregnant and assaulted her. Plot twist, I'd never even been alone with this professional victim. But my wife Diana believed her instantly. My in-laws threw me out like yesterday's trash, and my CEO fired me before I could say false accusation. I'd lost everything overnight, my home, job, and reputation on a single lie. So I did what any rational person would do. I vanished completely. New identity, fresh start. 5 years later, guess who shows up at my door crying and begging? Yeah, karma's about to serve a 5-course meal, but let me take you back to where this all started. The perfect storm brewing. Picture this, 2017, I'm 32, married to Diana for 4 years and living what everyone calls the American dream. Marketing director at a tech company pulling down 6 figures, mortgage on a house with a 2-car garage, and Diana talking about converting the spare bedroom into a nursery. Life was boring in the best possible way. The VP promotion was practically guaranteed, complete with company car and stock options. Everything was planned, predictable, and perfect. Then there was Jessica, Diana's younger sister, 26 years old and a walking natural disaster with legs. Where Diana was the responsible one who paid bills early and kept plants alive, Jessica treated existence like an ongoing audition for reality TV. Every conversation somehow became about her latest crisis. Lost another job because her manager was jealous of her success. Broke up with another boyfriend because he was emotionally unavailable, which usually meant he figured out she was insane. Jessica had this supernatural ability to suck all the oxygen out of any room just by existing in it. The warning signs were flashing neon bright, but Diana's family treated them like decorative lighting. Jessica couldn't keep a job for more than 3 months. The excuses rotated between sexual harassment, workplace bullying, or being too creative for corporate environments. Reality check, she got fired for showing up hungover and arguing with customers. Her employment history read like a tour of every retail chain and restaurant in the metro area. Each firing came with elaborate stories about toxic managers and hostile work environments. Her dating life was even more spectacular. Jessica specialized in unavailable men, married coworkers, guys with girlfriends, anyone who came with built-in drama and an exit strategy. She'd sob to Diana about being used and discarded, conveniently leaving out the part where she knew exactly what she was getting into. These weren't accidents or bad luck. Jessica actively hunted for complicated situations because simple, healthy relationships didn't provide enough attention or sympathy. Family gatherings became the Jessica show. Christmas dinner, she'd arrive late with some story about her car breaking down, her landlord being horrible, or her latest boyfriend being abusive. Easter brunch, cue the waterworks about how hard her life was compared to everyone else. Diana's birthday parties turned into therapy sessions where Jessica monopolized conversations with whatever crisis was trending that week. The woman had a PhD in making everything about her suffering. Diana's parents, Roberto and Patricia, enabled every second of this behavior. Roberto would slip Jessica money just to help her get back on her feet while she blew it on new clothes and expensive dinners. Patricia made excuses for every job loss, every failed relationship, every dramatic meltdown. They treated Jessica like she was made of glass instead of recognizing she was made of pure manipulation and self-pity. The annual summer barbecue was sacred family tradition. Roberto firing up the grill at exactly 2 p.m., Patricia fussing over potato salad, Diana coordinating who brought what side dishes. These gatherings were supposed to celebrate family unity, togetherness, all that Hallmark card garbage. Everyone contributed something. I usually handled beer runs and helped Roberto with the grill setup. Simple, predictable, boring family bonding. Jessica's contribution was chaos management. She'd show up carrying some fresh drama like a party favor. Sometimes she'd bring whatever disaster she was dating that month, watching him squirm through interrogation from Roberto while she enjoyed the attention. Other times she'd arrive solo with red eyes and a story about the latest man who broke her heart. Either way, the barbecue became Jessica's stage for whatever performance she'd been rehearsing. I lived in complete ignorance about what was building. My biggest concern was whether the beer would stay cold and if Roberto would overcook the burgers again. Diana handled all the Jessica drama, playing the supportive big sister role while I stayed focused on work, house projects, and planning our future. I figured Jessica would eventually grow up, find some guy willing to put up with her drama, and fade into background family noise. The speed at which a stable life can completely implode is terrifying. You spend years building something solid, career, marriage, reputation, and it can all disappear faster than smoke and wind. One minute you're discussing vacation plans and mortgage refinancing, the next minute you're unemployed and homeless. The destruction doesn't happen gradually, it hits like a freight train carrying dynamite. My boring, stable existence was about to collide with Jessica's Academy award-worthy performance skills. I was the responsible adult who showed up on time, paid bills early, and never caused drama. Jessica was pure chaos wrapped in victim mentality and powered by attention addiction. Oil and water don't mix, but that doesn't stop people from shaking the bottle and watching the explosion. Family loyalty is supposed to be unconditional support and protection, but in the wrong hands, that loyalty becomes a weapon sharper than any knife. Blood relations create automatic trust, built-in credibility that bypasses logic and evidence. When someone weaponizes that trust, the damage goes deeper than any stranger could inflict. Family knows exactly where to cut for maximum destruction. Roberto always bragged about family being everything, how blood was thicker than water, how family stuck together no matter what. Those values sounded beautiful until you realized they could be turned against you. When family loyalty gets hijacked by a professional victim, it becomes a loaded gun pointed at whoever threatens the narrative. But at that same barbecue, July 4, 2017, she set the stage for the biggest lie I'd ever face. The barbecue apocalypse. Roberto fired up the grill at exactly 2 p.m. like clockwork, wearing his ridiculous Kiss the Cook apron and already 3 beers deep into his usual routine of terrible dad jokes. The smell of charcoal mixed with Patricia's famous potato salad and that humid July air that makes your shirt stick to your back. Roberto kept bragging about his new boat, how he'd finally saved enough for the fishing trips he'd been planning for years. Standard family barbecue stuff. Patricia worried about having enough paper plates, and Diana reminded me twice to help Uncle Carlos carry the cooler from his truck. Jessica rolled up fashionably late in her beat-up Honda, stumbling out like she'd pre-gamed at 3 different bars. Her mascara was already smudged, her sundress wrinkled from whatever dramatic scene she'd performed earlier. She announced to everyone within earshot that her boss had basically fired her that morning for refusing his advances, which translated to getting canned for showing up hungover again. According to Jessica's tearful explanation, this married boss had been leading her on for months before choosing his wife and kids over her obvious charms. She reeked of wine and that particular desperation that makes people uncomfortable at parties. Patricia immediately went into mother hen mode, fussing over Jessica like she was a wounded bird instead of a 28-year-old woman who specialized in sleeping with other people's husbands. Roberto handed her a beer and muttered something about plenty of fish in the sea, while Jessica launched into graphic details about her boss's mixed signals and broken promises. I helped Diana arrange food on the picnic tables, discussing work stuff and weekend plans while Jessica held court near the patio furniture. Normal barbecue conversation about mortgage rates and lawn mower problems. Diana mentioned the promotion opportunity again, how the extra money would help with starting a family. I grabbed plates from the stack, made small talk with cousins about their kids' baseball games, completely oblivious to the storm brewing 20 feet away where Jessica was working on her 4th drink. Around 9 p.m., the beer situation became critical. Roberto's outdoor fridge ran empty, and Patricia sent me to the garage to grab more from their backup supply. Simple 30-second mission. Walk to garage, open spare fridge, grab beer case, return to party. The kind of mindless errand that happens at every family gathering without anyone thinking twice about it. Jessica followed me into the garage like a heat-seeking missile. I didn't notice until I bent down to grab the beer and heard the door close behind me. She leaned against the workbench, swaying slightly, wine breath filling the small space between us. Her eyes were glassy and unfocused, makeup smeared from the humidity and whatever crying jag she'd performed earlier. She stumbled forward, pressing herself against me before I could step back. The smell hit me first, cheap wine mixed with desperation and drugstore perfume. Her hands found my chest as she slurred something about Diana taking me for granted, how she'd noticed the way I looked at her during family dinners. Complete fantasy. I pushed her away, not gently but not violently either. Just the normal reaction of someone who doesn't want drunk relatives grinding on them in garages. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the workbench, and I told her to sober up and get away from me. Her face twisted into something ugly, wounded pride mixing with alcohol-fueled rage. She mumbled something about me thinking I was too good for her, but I was already walking away. The door opened, I stepped out with the beer case, and that was it. 30 seconds of awkward interaction with a drunk woman who'd been hitting on married men since high school. I figured she'd stumble back to the patio, grab another drink, and find someone else to complain to about her terrible life choices. This seemed like standard operating procedure for Jessica. I rejoined the party, handed Roberto the beer, and grabbed a burger from the grill. Diana was discussing vacation plans with her aunt while Roberto launched into his annual story about catching a fish that got away. I ate potato salad, made appropriate comments about the weather, and completely forgot about the garage incident. Just another Jessica moment in a lifetime of Jessica moments. 20 minutes passed. Normal family barbecue time filled with mundane conversations and the kind of relaxed atmosphere that happens when people have known each other for decades. I was debating whether to grab another burger when the garage door exploded open like someone had kicked it. Jessica burst out looking like she'd been attacked by a blender. Her sundress was torn strategically across the shoulder, exposing her bra strap. Makeup streaked down her face in perfect tear tracks that somehow managed to look both devastating and photogenic. Her hair was mussed just enough to suggest violence without actually looking messy. The performance was flawless. She stumbled toward the patio, sobbing hysterically while everyone stopped mid-conversation to stare. Roberto dropped his spatula, Patricia rushed forward with maternal concern, and Diana immediately went into protective sister mode. Jessica collapsed into the nearest chair, hands shaking as she pointed back toward the garage with theatrical precision. But the assault accusation was just the opening act. The stunt of all stunts came when Jessica grabbed Diana's hands, tears flowing like she'd turned on a faucet, and delivered the line that would destroy my life. She was pregnant, with my baby. The garage incident hadn't been rejection, it had been rape, and apparently I'd been secretly sleeping with her for months. Diana's face went through every human emotion in 3 seconds: confusion, realization, horror, betrayal, and finally rage. She didn't ask questions or demand explanations. Her baby sister was crying, claiming pregnancy and assault, and that was enough evidence for Diana's jury of one. The guilty verdict was instantaneous and final. The instant conviction. Diana's face ran through every human emotion like someone flipping TV channels at warp speed. Confusion lasted maybe half a second, followed by understanding, then horror, then pure rage. The final expression settled into something cold and final. Her baby sister was sobbing about pregnancy and assault, and that was enough evidence for Judge Diana's kangaroo court. Everyone turned on me in 30 seconds. Roberto dropped his beer and charged over like someone had attacked his property. Patricia wrapped Jessica in protective arms while shooting me looks that could melt steel. Uncle Carlos positioned himself between me and the women like I was some kind of wild animal. Every face at that barbecue transformed from familiar relatives into hostile strangers. Jessica's performance was flawless. Trembling hands, perfectly timed sobs, strategic makeup smears that looked devastating but photogenic. Nobody asked for my side of the story. Nobody wanted explanations or evidence or basic logic. Jessica said it happened, therefore it happened. Case closed, court adjourned, sentence imposed. The speed of their conviction was breathtaking. These people had known me for 6 years, watched me treat Diana like a queen, never seen me so much as raise my voice. But Jessica's tears trumped 6 years of character evidence without breaking a sweat. Diana's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Get out," she said, deadly quiet. "Get out before I call the police." I tried to speak, to explain what actually happened in that garage, but she turned away like I'd already stopped existing. Roberto and Carlos flanked me like bouncers at a nightclub, making it clear that my welcome had expired permanently. The transportation situation became the cherry on this humiliation Sunday. We'd carpooled with Roberto and Patricia, meaning my car was sitting in my own driveway 20 miles away. Roberto literally threw my keys at me like I was contaminated, then informed me I could find my own way home. Carlos blocked any attempt to approach Diana for car ride negotiations, so I stood in my in-laws' driveway, calling an Uber like some kind of criminal who'd been kicked out of a bar. The Uber driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror during the longest 20-minute ride of my life. I probably looked like someone fleeing a crime scene, sweating, shaking, trying to process what had just happened while Jessica's accusations echoed in my head. The driver finally asked if I was okay, and I realized I had no idea how to answer that question. My house felt like a crime scene when I walked through the front door. Diana had moved with military efficiency. Her clothes were gone from the closet, her toiletries cleared from the bathroom, her books missing from the nightstand. She'd taken her coffee mug, her throw pillows, even the stupid decorative candles she bought at Target. The only thing left behind was her wedding ring, sitting on the kitchen counter like a period at the end of a sentence. I had exactly 48 hours before everything I'd built vanished. The destruction timeline was surgical in its precision. Diana had apparently decided that due process was for other people, not her precious sister's accusations. Monday morning brought the financial warfare phase. Our joint checking account showed a zero balance. The savings account that took us 4 years to build had been emptied overnight. Our shared credit cards were maxed out with revenge spending that included designer purses, expensive dinners, and a weekend spa retreat for guess who. Diana's father made his friendly phone call to my CEO around lunchtime Monday. They were golf buddies from the country club, which made Roberto's story about his son-in-law's sexual assault charges carry extra weight. By Tuesday morning, I was unemployed and my marriage was over. The professional assassination spread faster than wildfire through industry circles. Within 48 hours, I was radioactive in the entire metropolitan marketing scene. Companies that had tried to recruit me the previous month suddenly stopped returning phone calls. LinkedIn recommendations vanished. Professional contacts went silent. The social isolation hit from every direction simultaneously. Friends who'd known me for years stopped answering texts. Family members chose sides without hearing evidence. Social media became a minefield where any comment or post got dissected for signs of guilt or innocence. Diana's friends posted vague but pointed messages about supporting victims and believing women, clearly directed at anyone still connected to me. My own family's reaction was almost worse than Diana's. My mother called asking if the rumors were true, already convinced by the mere existence of accusations. My father suggested I hire a lawyer, but his tone implied he thought I probably needed one. My brother avoided my calls entirely, apparently deciding that maintaining relationships with his wife's friends was more important than supporting his sibling. The speed of complete social destruction was stunning. Thursday morning, I was a respected marketing director with a stable marriage and solid reputation. By Saturday afternoon, I was unemployed, divorced, and treated like a registered sex offender by everyone who'd known me my entire adult life. Jessica had managed to destroy 34 years of reputation building in less than a week. The restraining order arrived via process server the following Tuesday. Jessica had filed legal paperwork claiming ongoing harassment and threats, despite the fact that I hadn't contacted her or anyone in her family since the barbecue. The order prohibited me from coming within 500 feet of Jessica, Diana, or any family gatherings. Violating it would result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. Apparently, destroying my marriage, career, and social standing wasn't enough insurance for Jessica's lies. She needed legal documentation to guarantee I stayed destroyed, unable to defend myself or present contradictory evidence. The restraining order was her insurance policy, ensuring that any attempt to clear my name would be treated as criminal harassment of a pregnant assault victim. Fighting these lies would be like trying to unring a bell. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something bulletproof. The Great Disappearing Act. The nuclear option started looking less like desperation and more like strategy. Rock bottom tastes like instant ramen and comes with a bed that squeaks when you breathe on it. I was sitting in a 400-square-foot studio apartment with $3,000 to my name, which sounds like money until you realize it has to cover starting over from absolute zero. If my current identity was radioactive, maybe it was time to get a new one. People change their names for all kinds of reasons: marriage, witness protection, escaping abusive families. I was escaping an abusive sister-in-law who'd weaponized pregnancy and assault accusations like other people weaponized social media posts. The legal process was surprisingly straightforward for something that felt like identity suicide. I filed paperwork, passed a quick hearing, picked a forgettable name, and flew to Denver. Choosing my new identity felt like picking a character in a video game, except the stakes were my actual life. I needed something common enough to blend in but not so generic that it seemed fake. I settled on something boring and forgettable, the kind of name that HR departments process without a second thought. The goodbye tour was depressing in ways I hadn't expected. Selling everything you own feels like performing your own estate sale while still alive. Selling our couch felt like auctioning my memories. The dining room table where Diana and I had planned our future, the bed where we talked about baby names, everything had memories attached, and I was selling those memories to people who just saw functional furniture at decent prices. Closing bank accounts and canceling services felt like erasing myself from existence one phone call at a time. The customer service representatives went through their scripts about retention offers while I explained that I was moving and wouldn't need their services anymore. They had no idea they were talking to someone who was essentially committing identity suicide. The airport departure was surreal. I sat in the terminal with one suitcase containing everything that mattered from 34 years of existence. No family to see me off, no friends wishing me luck, just anonymous travelers heading to their own destinations. I boarded a one-way flight to Denver carrying a new driver's license with an unfamiliar name, feeling like a witness protection program participant without the government backing. My first morning in Denver started in a motel room that charged by the week and asked minimal questions about background or references. I looked in the bathroom mirror at someone who technically didn't exist 48 hours earlier. Same face, same scars from childhood accidents, but attached to a name that had no history, no reputation, and no baggage from psychotic in-laws. Learning to respond to my new name was harder than expected. The delay between hearing it and realizing someone was talking to me created awkward moments in coffee shops and convenience stores. I practiced introducing myself to the mirror like an actor rehearsing lines, getting comfortable with the sound of my fake identity rolling off my tongue naturally. Creating a backstory became essential for job interviews and casual conversations. I couldn't mention my previous marriage, my marketing career, or anything connected to my old identity. Instead, I crafted a history of freelance work, cross-country moves, and deliberately vague employment gaps that suggested adventure rather than destruction. The lies came easier than I expected, probably because the truth was too complicated to explain to strangers. Employment presented the biggest challenge. My resume was either completely fabricated or totally honest, and neither option seemed promising. Fabricated meant risking exposure if anyone did serious background checks. Honest meant explaining why a successful marketing director was applying for entry-level positions in a different state under a different name. I chose creative truth-telling that emphasized transferable skills while avoiding specific company names or detailed timelines. The apartment hunting process revealed how much I'd taken my previous life for granted. Landlords wanted references, employment history, credit checks, all the documentation that proved you were a stable, responsible adult. My new identity had none of that credibility. I was essentially an 18-year-old in a 34-year-old's body, starting from scratch with no financial history or professional reputation. Finding work meant accepting whatever paid the bills while I figured out the long-term strategy. Construction companies hired people who could swing hammers and show up on time, no questions asked about complicated pasts or mysterious employment gaps. The work was brutal, but honest money that Jessica's lies couldn't touch. The long-game commitment crystallized during those first few weeks of apartment hunting and job searching. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about building something so solid, so bulletproof, that even Jessica's lies couldn't penetrate it. If she'd accidentally done me a favor by forcing this restart, then I was going to make sure her favor turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. Construction by day, coding by night, my new revenge blueprint was taking shape. Phoenix rising, literally. The Phoenix heat was basically voluntary torture with a paycheck. I was swinging hammers and hauling materials for 12 hours a day, building custom homes for people who probably spent more on their kitchen appliances than I made in 6 months. My hands developed calluses thick enough to stop bullets, and my back ached in ways I didn't know were possible. The crew was mostly guys who'd made their own mistakes and ended up starting over in construction. Nobody asked too many personal questions, which suited my situation perfectly. My foreman Hector was a straight-talking guy who'd seen enough people running from their past to recognize the signs. One afternoon, watching me work through lunch break again, he said, "You're not running from something, man, you're running to something." He was right. The real work started when I got home, forcing myself to sit at my wobbly kitchen table with coding tutorials playing on a laptop older than some of my coworkers. HTML, CSS, JavaScript languages that made more sense than anything my former family had ever said. Code either worked or it didn't. No emotions, no lies, no manipulation, just logic and results. The freelance work started small, but each completed job added another line to my portfolio, another reference who knew me only as my new identity. 6 months of night school and weekend coding led to my first real breakthrough. A cybersecurity firm needed someone to build client-facing dashboards, and my combination of business experience and fresh coding skills landed me the contract. The irony was perfect. Someone who'd been destroyed by lies was now protecting other people from digital deception. The cybersecurity work opened doors I didn't know existed. Companies needed people who understood both technical threats and business consequences. My background in marketing, even though I couldn't reference it directly, gave me insights into how hackers targeted businesses and individuals. I spoke both languages, corporate strategy and technical implementation. That's when I met Monica. She walked into a coffee shop near my apartment building, carrying a laptop and the kind of confidence that comes from solving problems other people can't handle. She was a forensic accountant turned tech entrepreneur, investigating financial fraud for corporate clients while building her own software consulting company. Monica was everything Diana wasn't. Where Diana had believed accusations without evidence, Monica demanded documentation for everything. She asked direct questions and expected specific answers. Her entire profession was built on not trusting people's word, which meant she appreciated my newfound obsession with proof and verification. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. She was working on a case involving cryptocurrency fraud, and I mentioned some coding techniques that could help track digital transactions. Instead of politely nodding and changing the subject, she pulled out her laptop and asked me to show her exactly what I meant. We spent the afternoon building database queries and debugging code together. Monica's approach to relationships was refreshingly logical. She didn't believe in soulmates or love at first sight. Trust was earned through consistent actions over time, not assumed because of shared genetics or marriage certificates. She appreciated that I understood the difference between public reputation and private character, probably because her job involved exposing people who excelled at maintaining that gap. The business partnership developed naturally. Monica needed technical expertise for her consulting clients, and I needed business connections to grow beyond freelance projects. We started mapping out the inconsistencies in cases involving false accusations, digital harassment, and reputation attacks. Monica's analytical mind could spot patterns in lies that most people missed, while my technical skills could trace the digital footprints that liars left behind. The poetic justice was too perfect to ignore. Someone who'd been destroyed by lies was now making a living protecting others from similar attacks. Our client list included executives facing false sexual harassment claims, small business owners dealing with fake review campaigns, and individuals targeted by online harassment. Every case felt personal because I understood exactly how quickly lies could destroy carefully built lives. We co-founded a cybersecurity company specializing in reputation protection, helping businesses and individuals defend against online attacks, false accusations, and digital sabotage. Military contracts, Fortune 500 clients, government agencies, everyone needed protection from digital lies and reputation attacks. Monica and I had bought a house with mountain views and a 3-car garage. No mortgage, no debt, just the kind of financial security that comes from building something real. The transformation was complete in every way that mattered, from destroyed marketing director to successful cybersecurity entrepreneur. From betrayed husband to partner in a relationship built on evidence instead of assumptions. From social pariah to respected business owner whose opinion carried weight in industry circles. By year 3, I'd co-founded a cyber firm, bulletproof and untraceable, but I hadn't finished with my sister-in-law yet. The home office had become my sanctuary, 3 monitors displaying client dashboards while I worked cases that would have seemed impossible 5 years earlier. Monica was at a client meeting that Tuesday afternoon in March when the security camera chimed with a motion alert. The screen showed a woman holding a toddler, and despite 5 years of hard living etched into her face, I recognized her immediately. The doorbell of doom. Vanessa had found me. She looked like karma had been using her as a punching bag for half a decade. The toddler on her hip stared at me with huge brown eyes while his mother's worn-out clothes and desperate expression told the real story. Time to gather receipts. My first instinct was ignoring the doorbell completely, but 5 years of cybersecurity work had taught me that information was power. Vanessa showing up unannounced was information worth collecting. I walked to the front door, checking that my phone was recording, making sure the security cameras captured every angle. This wasn't kindness or forgiveness. This was strategic intelligence gathering. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She started talking immediately, words tumbling out like she'd rehearsed this speech during the drive over. She was sorry about everything that happened. She'd made mistakes. Her life had fallen apart. She needed help getting back on her feet. The kid continued staring at me with none of his mother's manipulation skills. Vanessa's appearance told the real story better than her words. The designer clothes she used to blow Roberto's money on were replaced by Walmart specials that had seen too many wash cycles. Her manicured nails were chewed down to nothing. The professional highlights had grown out months ago, leaving roots that screamed financial desperation. This wasn't someone who thrived after destroying my life. This was someone who discovered that actions had consequences. She asked if she could come inside, claiming the kid needed to use the bathroom. I stepped aside, not out of hospitality, but because I wanted to watch her reaction to what her lies had accidentally helped me build. The marble foyer opened into a living room with furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Through the windows, the infinity pool reflected mountain views that belonged on postcards. Vanessa's eyes went wide as she took in the obvious success. She'd expected to find me broken and desperate, maybe living in some apartment complex where she could play the role of generous forgiver. Instead, she'd walked into evidence that her attempt at destruction had backfired spectacularly. I positioned her on the couch that faced directly toward the hidden camera Monica and I used for client meetings. 5 years of corporate espionage cases had taught me the value of documentation. Every word she spoke was being recorded in high definition with crystal clear audio. If Vanessa was planning another round of false accusations, this time I'd have evidence from the moment she walked through my door. The psychological dynamic was fascinating to observe. Vanessa thought she was dealing with the same trusting family man she destroyed half a decade earlier. She had no idea she was sitting across from someone who'd spent 5 years learning that mercy was weakness, that trust was earned through actions rather than words, and that people like her only understood consequences when they came with legal documentation. Her sob story unfolded predictably. The family had turned against her after the truth came out about her lies. Roberto had cut off financial support. Diana wouldn't speak to her. She'd lost jobs, apartments, relationships. The kid's father sent money occasionally but wasn't interested in playing daddy to a pathological liar's child. She was cleaning houses under the table, staying in extended-stay motels, basically living the kind of life that made people understand why actions should have consequences. I listened without offering sympathy or solutions. Vanessa interpreted my silence as weakness, probably thinking she could manipulate me the way she'd manipulated my former family. She had no clue she was talking to someone who'd spent 5 years protecting other people from exactly her kind of predatory behavior. After 5 minutes of listening to her victim narrative, I told her she had 5 minutes to explain what she actually wanted. Not because I was being kind, but because successful people don't waste time on failed manipulation attempts, especially when those attempts were being recorded by multiple cameras for potential legal use. Vanessa's request was predictably pathetic. She needed money to get back on her feet, a job reference from my cybersecurity company, maybe help finding an apartment where she could start over with her son. She painted herself as a reformed person who'd learned from her mistakes and deserved a second chance at redemption. The performance was flawless in its desperation. Tears at exactly the right moments, strategic mentions of her innocent child, carefully crafted language that positioned her as the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of her own destruction. 5 years hadn't changed her fundamental approach to problem-solving through manipulation and emotional blackmail. But I'd changed. The trusting family man who'd believed people deserved benefit of the doubt was gone, replaced by someone who understood that predators like Vanessa only respected strength and consequences. She was about to learn that lesson in ways she couldn't imagine. I told her to come back Thursday afternoon, same time. We could discuss her situation more thoroughly when I had time to consider her request properly. This wasn't forgiveness or kindness, this was strategic positioning. Some conversations required proper preparation. Vanessa left thinking she'd found salvation. I watched her drive away in a car that probably failed its last 3 inspections, already planning how her return visit would provide everything I needed, because I needed her own words. The confession booth. Thursday afternoon arrived with Vanessa looking like she'd attempted damage control with a dollar store makeup kit. She'd left the kids somewhere and tried to clean herself up for what she thought was a job interview. Hair washed but still flat, clothes that were clean but couldn't hide their discount origins. I positioned her in the living room chair that faced directly toward the hidden camera system Monica and I used for client consultations. The angle was perfect full-face view with optimal lighting from the floor-to-ceiling windows. Every word she spoke would be recorded with the kind of clarity that made lawyers weep with joy. I offered water while she settled into what she thought was casual conversation. The strategic hospitality positioned her exactly where I needed her and gave me time to activate backup audio systems hidden throughout the room. Professional paranoia had its advantages when dealing with professional liars. Vanessa launched into her enhanced story version, apparently having spent 5 years perfecting her narrative. According to the new timeline, I'd been flirting with her for months before the barbecue, meaningful glances across dinner tables, compliments that Diana supposedly missed, text messages that I'd somehow sent without leaving digital evidence. The lies had evolved during half a decade of telling them. She painted herself as the unwilling victim of sustained seduction attempts. I'd allegedly made her feel special during family gatherings, told her that Diana didn't appreciate me properly, hinted that I was unhappy in my marriage. The garage incident became the culmination of months of grooming rather than 30 seconds of drunken desperation. The pregnancy timeline became particularly interesting when I started asking specific questions. What hospital had she used for prenatal care? Which doctor had confirmed the pregnancy? Vanessa's answers got progressively vague and contradictory. Apparently, she'd been so traumatized that she'd avoided proper medical care. The pregnancy had ended in an early miscarriage that she dealt with privately. Each question revealed new inconsistencies in her story. Dates didn't align with her original timeline. Medical details showed ignorance about actual pregnancy procedures. She kept adjusting details mid-conversation, apparently forgetting that people with actual memories don't need to constantly revise basic facts. The wedding confession came when she started crying about how the truth had destroyed her relationship with the family. Diana's wedding 3 years after my disappearance had been Vanessa's breaking point. She'd gotten drunk during the reception and admitted to Diana's new husband that the whole pregnancy story had been fabricated. Alcohol was both the original cause of her lies and eventually the solution to keeping them buried. According to Vanessa's tearful account, Diana's husband had demanded the full truth before agreeing to marry into a family with that much dysfunction. Vanessa had confessed everything during a wine-fueled breakdown, thinking that honesty would somehow repair the damage. Instead, it had triggered the final phase of her social destruction. Roberto's reaction to learning about the lies had apparently involved his fists. Vanessa rolled up her sleeves to show faded scars on her forearms, claiming they were from Roberto's attempt at beating truth out of her. Patricia had disowned her completely, changing locks and instructing the entire extended family to cut contact. Her current living situation painted a picture of consequences finally catching up with bad decisions. She was cleaning houses under the table for cash, never staying anywhere long enough to build relationships. The kid's father was some married guy who sent money sporadically when his guilt outweighed his convenience. But the most revealing detail came when she started laughing about her dramatic phase. Vanessa actually admitted to practicing breakdown performances, studying online trauma symptoms to make her reactions more convincing. She'd researched how assault victims behaved, memorized the language therapists used, even practiced crying techniques in mirrors. The garage incident hadn't been spontaneous desperation, it had been a calculated performance based on extensive preparation. I let her finish the sob story before presenting what she thought was her salvation opportunity. My cybersecurity company occasionally hired people for basic administrative tasks. Data entry, filing, simple organizational work. The pay was decent, the environment was professional, and it could provide the stable employment she needed to rebuild her life. Vanessa's eyes lit up like I'd offered her a lottery ticket. She started talking about how grateful she was, how she'd learned from her mistakes, how she just needed one person to believe in her redemption story. The irony was perfect. The woman who destroyed my life was begging the man she tried to ruin for the chance to start over. The job offer came with one requirement. Given the sensitive nature of cybersecurity work, all employees needed to complete detailed background disclosure forms. Everything had to be documented: previous employment, criminal history, any civil litigation. Standard industry practice for companies handling classified information. I framed the written confession requirement as closure for both of us. The disclosure process would allow her to officially acknowledge past mistakes while demonstrating her commitment to honesty moving forward. Professional counselors recommended this kind of documented accountability for people rebuilding their lives. Vanessa agreed enthusiastically to the written confession process. She thought she'd found someone stupid enough to believe her redemption narrative and generous enough to risk helping her rebuild. She begged for a job, but that would buy me weeks of evidence gathering. The employment trap. The housekeeping and administrative role I offered Vanessa was perfect cover for the most elaborate revenge operation ever disguised as corporate charity. She showed up Monday morning at 8 a.m. sharp, wearing her best attempt at business casual and carrying a notebook like she was ready to take over the Fortune 500. She cleaned my house and office, perfect cover to record her every word. Vanessa threw herself into the work with desperate enthusiasm, organizing supply closets, wiping down conference room tables where million-dollar contracts got signed, handling basic filing tasks. She treated every mundane task like a sacred responsibility, probably because this was the first legitimate job she'd held in years. The irony was delicious, watching her clean the empire I'd built from the ashes of her lies. The comfort progression happened exactly as I'd predicted. Day 1, Vanessa was nervous and formal, calling me sir and asking permission before touching anything. By day 3, she was making small talk about office supplies and commenting on client meetings she overheard. Week 2 brought casual conversation during lunch breaks, where she started sharing details about her struggles over the past 5 years. The casual admissions started flowing like water from a broken dam. Vanessa began laughing about what she called her dramatic phase during family gatherings. She made jokes about being such a mess back then, like destroying innocent people's lives was comparable to having an embarrassing haircut in high school. The psychological disconnect was stunning. She genuinely seemed to believe her lies were youthful mistakes rather than calculated malice. Monica's forensic accounting background made her the perfect partner for documentation. She set up recordings throughout the office and cataloged every conversation. Watching a professional evidence compiler work was like watching an artist create a masterpiece, except this masterpiece would hold up in criminal court and civil proceedings. The pattern revelation emerged during Vanessa's 3rd week, when she got comfortable enough to discuss her dating history. A Apparently, false accusations were her signature move, not a one-time barbecue special. She'd accused 3 different men of assault over the years, always after being rejected or when relationships ended badly. Each accusation followed the same script: claims of pregnancy, strategic tears, family rallying around the victim. Vanessa described her methodology like she was sharing cooking recipes. The key was mixing just enough truth with the lies to make them believable. Real locations, actual events, but with crucial details altered to support the false narrative. She'd learned that people rarely questioned emotional testimony, especially when it came from someone they wanted to protect. The scope of family complicity became clear during Vanessa's 4th week. Roberto had apparently known the pregnancy claims were false, but chose to believe them anyway because admitting his daughter was a pathological liar was too embarrassing. Patricia had destroyed Vanessa's original pregnancy test, which had been negative, to eliminate evidence that contradicted the family narrative. Vanessa revealed details about evidence destruction with the casual attitude of someone discussing household chores. Text messages deleted, medical records that never existed, witness statements that were coordinated rather than spontaneous. The entire family had participated in a conspiracy to destroy my reputation, and Vanessa was documenting their involvement like she was writing a memoir. The additional confessions kept flowing throughout her employment. Vanessa admitted to coaching other family members on their testimony, creating fake timelines to support her story, and even practicing her emotional breakdowns in front of mirrors. The level of premeditation was breathtaking. This wasn't crime of passion, it was calculated reputation assassination with multiple accomplices. Monica's evidence compilation grew more comprehensive each day. Video recordings, audio files, written statements, digital timestamps, cross-reference documentation that painted a complete picture of Vanessa's criminal behavior and family conspiracy. The package was becoming prosecution-ready, complete with chain-of-custody documentation that would satisfy federal court requirements. The final week arrived with Vanessa completely relaxed in her role. She'd stopped being careful about her admissions, apparently convinced that she'd found someone stupid enough to believe her redemption story and generous enough to overlook her past mistakes. The psychological transformation was complete, from desperate supplicant to comfortable employee who felt safe sharing her deepest secrets. Friday afternoon brought the most damning confession yet. Vanessa admitted that she'd tracked me down specifically because she needed someone to exploit. Her investigation into my new identity had taken months, but she'd been confident that her original victim would be too weak to resist her sob story. She'd planned the entire encounter, from the kid props to the carefully crafted desperation narrative. Vanessa actually hugged me goodbye that Friday evening, tears in her eyes as she thanked me for saving her life and giving her a second chance at redemption. She had no idea she'd just spent 4 weeks providing all the evidence needed to destroy any chance of future redemption. The weekend compilation process was methodical and thorough. Monica organized everything into categories: criminal admissions, civil liability evidence, conspiracy documentation, and perjury proof. The video quality was courtroom ready, the audio was crystal clear, and the written confessions were signed and dated. By week 4, she confessed to every crime. The distribution list was ready. Diana, Roberto, Patricia, every family member who'd believed Vanessa's lies, Diana's new husband's employer, Vanessa's current landlord, and Child Protective Services. The evidence would go to everyone who needed to understand that Vanessa was a professional victim whose lies destroyed innocent people's lives. Sunday night felt like the calm before a very calculated storm. The Monday morning massacre. Monday morning arrived with the precision that makes prosecutors smile. While Vanessa was probably hitting snooze on whatever alarm clock she'd stolen from a motel room, I was executing the most comprehensive evidence distribution campaign in the history of family destruction. Monica had prepared multiple copies of Vanessa's confession package, 4 weeks of recorded admissions, written statements, video evidence, and timestamp documentation that would make federal investigators jealous. The recipient list was strategic perfection: Diana's personal email and her new husband's work address, because nothing says "good morning honey" like discovering your wife helped destroy an innocent man. Roberto and Patricia's emails, along with physical copies mailed to their home address with signature confirmation required. Every family member who'd shunned me got their own personalized evidence package, complete with their name highlighted in Vanessa's recorded confessions about family conspiracy. Child Protective Services received the most comprehensive package, including Vanessa's recorded admissions about using her son as a prop in manipulation schemes and her documented history of creating false emergencies for attention. The caseworker assigned to review the evidence would have everything needed to understand that this child was living with someone who treated lies like other people treated breathing. My phone exploded with 17 missed calls from Diana's number before I blocked her permanently. The voicemails compressed the 5 stages of grief into digital audio files. Anger first, then bargaining, broken sobs when she realized she'd spent 5 years married to someone else while her first husband built an empire she'd never see. The final acceptance stage sounded like someone watching their entire worldview collapse in real time. Roberto's attempted confrontation was pure comedy. The man who'd thrown me out of barbecues showed up at my front door around 10 a.m., probably expecting to intimidate me the way he'd done 5 years earlier. Instead, he met a security system that would make government facilities jealous and a response team that removed trespassers with professional efficiency. The police officers who escorted Roberto off my property were respectful but firm. Successful business owners who pay substantial property taxes get different treatment than unemployed guys getting kicked out of family gatherings. The legal filings began that afternoon with surgical precision. Monica's forensic accounting connections included lawyers who specialized in reputation destruction cases. The defamation lawsuit sought $2.3 million in damages, lost wages, business opportunities, emotional distress, and punitive damages for 5 years of malicious lies. The criminal referrals went to district attorneys in 3 different jurisdictions where Vanessa had filed false police reports. The conspiracy charges were particularly satisfying. Roberto and Patricia faced criminal prosecution for evidence destruction and witness coaching. Diana's new husband received notification that he'd married into a family under federal investigation for organized fraud. The legal equivalent of carpet bombing, except every bomb was guided by Vanessa's own recorded confessions. Vanessa's text message breakdown provided real-time documentation of someone watching their life implode. Confusion turned to anger when she realized the evidence was her own words, then suicidal threats when she understood that consequences had finally caught up with interest and penalties. The domino effect was magnificent to watch from a distance. Diana's husband filed for divorce within 48 hours, apparently deciding that being married to someone who destroyed innocent people was incompatible with his career and reputation. Roberto faced criminal charges that froze his assets pending investigation. Patricia filed her own divorce papers, apparently realizing that 30 years of marriage wasn't worth protecting a husband who participated in destroying their son-in-law. Vanessa's psychiatric hold resulted from her suicide threats during text message conversations with multiple family members. The 72-hour evaluation was mandatory when someone claimed they'd rather die than face consequences for their actions. Even her threats of self-harm were manipulative, trying to position herself as the victim of my evidence distribution rather than the perpetrator of 5 years of lies. Every contact got proof she was the liar. The community response was collective embarrassment on an epic scale. Everyone who'd shunned me, avoided my calls, or treated me like a criminal was now dealing with documented proof that they'd been played by a professional victim. Vanessa lost custody of her son during the psychiatric evaluation. Child Services had 4 weeks of recorded evidence showing she used the kid as a manipulation tool and created unstable living situations through her lies and drama. The boy was placed with foster parents who could provide actual stability instead of whatever chaos Vanessa called parenting. The asset freezing was the final cherry on this Justice Sunday. Roberto's bank accounts were locked pending criminal investigation into conspiracy and fraud charges. Vanessa's life was completely destroyed. No job, no family, no child, no hope of redemption. Diana was living with friends because her husband had kicked her out and her parents were facing divorce and criminal charges. By Monday night, Vanessa was on a psychiatric hold with restraining orders and charges across 3 jurisdictions. Karma delivered with legal documentation, federal investigation, and the kind of thorough destruction that comes when patient people finally decide that mercy was overrated and justice required receipts. The view from my home office that evening was particularly satisfying. The victory lap. The wedding planning felt surreal, while Vanessa faced criminal charges across 3 jurisdictions. Monica and I designed our celebration around the infinity pool that reflected mountain peaks, discussing trust and partnership over whiskey that cost more than Vanessa's monthly motel rent. The guest list was deliberately small, no blood relatives invited, because some people earn their place in your life and others forfeit it through calculated betrayal. Our lawyers called it a slam dunk, receipts too strong to deny. 7 years of documented damages, lost wages, destroyed business opportunities, and pain and suffering created a case so solid that defense attorneys were already discussing settlement options. Monica's forensic accounting had quantified every dollar Vanessa's lies had cost me, from the original job loss to the years of rebuilding under a false identity. Vanessa's complete downfall was visible through social media monitoring that Monica maintained for security purposes. No legitimate employment because background checks revealed her history of false accusations. No family support because everyone had learned about her lies through recorded confessions. No custody of her son because Child Services had documented evidence of her using him as manipulation props. She was living in whatever car hadn't been repossessed yet, facing criminal charges that carried serious jail time. The criminal proceedings were moving through courts with mechanical precision. False police reports, conspiracy to commit fraud, perjury during civil proceedings, witness intimidation. Each charge would keep Vanessa away from potential victims for years. The prosecutors were treating her case like organized crime, which wasn't far from accurate given the family conspiracy that had supported her lies. Roberto's marriage ended exactly as predicted when Patricia realized that 30 years of partnership wasn't worth protecting a husband who'd participated in destroying innocent people. The divorce filing cited irreconcilable differences, but everyone understood it was really about a woman discovering her husband's true character. Their assets were frozen pending criminal investigation, which meant Patricia was starting over at 60 with nothing. Diana's reputation in their hometown was completely destroyed. Everyone who treated her like the victim of betrayal now understood she was actually the accomplice who'd chosen her sister's lies over her husband's character. The community reversal was brutal. Former friends avoided her, neighbors crossed streets to escape conversation, and local businesses treated her like radioactive waste. Diana's new husband's cooperation with our divorce attorneys was particularly satisfying. He'd filed his own papers within days of receiving Vanessa's confession videos, apparently deciding that being married to someone who destroyed innocent people was incompatible with his career in finance. His lawyer was coordinating with our team to ensure Diana received nothing in either divorce. The community's collective embarrassment was visible everywhere. Social media posts appeared with vague references to misunderstandings and learning experiences, like destroying someone's life was comparable to forgetting an anniversary. Former friends sent awkward messages through mutual connections, apparently hoping to repair relationships without actually acknowledging their complicity in believing lies over evidence. My firm now protects others from exactly what Vanessa tried on me. Military contracts worth 7 figures, Fortune 500 clients requesting comprehensive reputation protection services, government agencies consulting on digital warfare defense. Her attempt at destruction had accidentally forced me into the most lucrative career change possible. Monica's partnership had transformed both our professional and personal lives. Her forensic accounting expertise combined with my cybersecurity knowledge created services that clients couldn't find anywhere else. We specialized in protecting people from exactly what Vanessa had done to me, which meant every case felt personal and every victory felt like delayed justice. I learned mercy without documentation is weakness. Now I trust with proof. 5 years earlier, I'd been a trusting family man who believed blood relations meant something, that marriage vows created automatic loyalty, that good people could rely on basic human decency. Monica appreciated this transformation because her career had taught her similar lessons about how often trusted people betrayed family members, business partners, and spouses. The recording systems throughout our home and office had become second nature. Every conversation was documented, every visitor was monitored, every interaction was preserved in formats that would hold up in criminal court. Living like this might seem paranoid to people who hadn't experienced complete destruction through false accusations, but Monica understood that documentation was insurance against future Vanessa situations. The guest list represented chosen family rather than genetic accidents. Business partners who'd supported our success, friends who'd proven their loyalty through actions rather than words, mentors who'd helped transform destruction into opportunity. These people had earned their invitations through consistent behavior over years, not through shared DNA or marriage certificates. The mountain views from our ceremony location would provide the perfect backdrop for celebrating partnership built on actual trust rather than assumed loyalty. No blood relatives would witness the vows, but that felt appropriate. Some bridges deserved to stay burned, especially when they were destroyed by people who chose lies over truth. If you've ever been burned by betrayal, drop a comment below and subscribe for more wild true stories. But I know some of you are probably thinking I went too far with this whole thing. The aftermath analysis. 2 lessons matter more than everything else. Mercy without justice enables future victims, and documentation beats emotion every single time. Being the bigger person was exactly what made me vulnerable to Vanessa's lies in the first place. I trusted family, assumed good intentions, and believed that truth would eventually win over manipulation. That naive approach got me destroyed, unemployed, and socially exiled based on the word of someone who specialized in weaponizing victimhood for attention. Every time someone like Vanessa gets away with false accusations, she learns that tears and strategic sobbing work better than honesty or personal responsibility. Everything I did operated within completely legal boundaries. Recording conversations in my own home is legal in my state. Filing truthful police reports about documented crimes is civic duty. Pursuing civil remedies for damages is exactly what the court system exists to handle. Vanessa's own recorded confessions provided all the evidence prosecutors needed. This wasn't vigilante justice, it was systematic documentation followed by appropriate legal action. The most comprehensive vindication came from legal professionals who reviewed Monica's evidence compilation. Defense attorneys advised Vanessa to accept plea bargains rather than fight charges supported by her own recorded admissions. Recorded confessions cleaned house in court. This wasn't revenge served cold, it was justice served with receipts that would satisfy federal court standards. Vanessa's son being removed from her custody was the best possible outcome for everyone involved, especially the kid. Child Services made their decision based on recorded evidence of Vanessa using her son to generate sympathy during manipulation attempts. Children deserve stable environments with adults who don't use them as props in manipulation schemes. The family response revealed character traits that had probably existed for years but never been tested. Roberto choosing to believe his daughter's lies over evidence spoke to his willingness to sacrifice truth for family convenience. Patricia's decision to destroy negative pregnancy tests showed active participation in reputation destruction. Diana's immediate conviction without questions demonstrated that blood relations mattered more to her than basic fairness or logic. These weren't good people who made mistakes. They were people whose true nature got exposed when they faced the choice between truth and tribal loyalty. The fact that they believed Vanessa's obvious lies said everything about their character and nothing about the quality of her performance. Blood relation doesn't guarantee loyalty, intelligence, or basic human decency. Monica's role was crucial from the moment Vanessa reappeared at my door. Her forensic accounting background meant she understood that documentation beats emotion every single time. She suggested recording systems, evidence compilation methods, and legal strategies that turned Vanessa's voluntary confessions into prosecution-ready packages. Successful partnerships are built on people who understand that feelings don't trump facts in courtrooms. Monica never questioned the comprehensive justice operation because her professional experience had shown her how often trusted people betrayed family members and business partners. She'd seen enough financial fraud cases to understand that mercy toward manipulative people just encouraged them to find new victims. Her support wasn't about revenge, it was about preventing future Vanessa situations through appropriate consequences. The strategic patience philosophy paid dividends that hunting Vanessa down never could have achieved. Waiting for her to come crawling back meant she arrived desperate enough to accept any opportunity I offered. Her voluntary participation in employment arrangements meant every recorded confession was legally obtained without coercion. Patient people who let enemies destroy themselves through their own actions create legal situations that defense attorneys can't challenge. This was about stopping her, not indulging pain. Justice demands receipts. Society only functions when actions have appropriate responses, especially actions that destroy innocent people's lives through calculated lies. Vanessa's false accusations were crimes that had gone unpunished for years while she continued targeting new victims. Justice required systematic documentation and legal accountability. The transformation from naive family man to strategic thinker was necessary for survival in a world where people like Vanessa exist. Trusting blood relations and assuming good intentions makes you vulnerable to manipulation by family members who understand how to weaponize loyalty. Learning that trust must be earned through consistent actions rather than assumed through genetic connection was painful but essential education. Understanding that mercy is weakness when dealing with professional victims changed how I approached all relationships. Monica appreciated this transformation because her career had taught her similar lessons about human nature. People who document everything and verify claims aren't paranoid, they're experienced. They understand that evidence provides protection against future false accusations. Vanessa took 7 years of my life through false accusations that destroyed my marriage, career, and social connections. Fair trade required taking the rest of her life through comprehensive legal consequences that would prevent her from targeting future victims. She'd spent years perfecting her manipulation techniques and destroying innocent people. Equal destruction was appropriate recompense for professional victimhood that had operated without consequences for too long. Hit like if you agree evidence is everything and share your story below. The world is full of people who think they can destroy others without consequences, but sometimes the destroyed rise stronger than their destroyers ever imagined. Documentation beats manipulation every single time. If you're facing false accusations, record conversations legally, save text messages, and create paper trails that prosecutors can follow. Trust no one completely until they've proven their loyalty through consistent actions over years, not genetic relationships or marriage certificates. Modern problems require systematic solutions, and Vanessa's lies were modern problems that demanded legal accountability. Justice served with evidence, witnesses, and representation that holds up in criminal court is the only protection against professional victims who weaponize tears for attention and resources. Remember, only evidence stops professional victims. Subscribe for more insane true stories and drop a like if you want tips on protecting your reputation. Thanks for sticking with me. See you next time.